in a lavish restaurant, bathed in soft golden light. Everything seems peaceful, but hidden deep behind the red brick walls is a dark secret waiting to be exposed. The owner returns after a long absence, only to discover that the smiles are just a facade, and beneath them lies a horrifying truth no one dares to speak of. As darkness descends, who will have the courage to unveil the secret? And this is their story. Jack Carter pushed open the heavy, deep red wooden door of Redwood Rye, his heart filled with indescribable emotions. It had been months since he last returned to his restaurant in Austin, Texas, a place he had poured so much effort into building. Inside, the space unfolded before his eyes, still as cozy and luxurious as ever. The high ceiling exposed dark red wooden beams. Soft yellow light cast upon rustic brick walls, and the scent of cedar wood blended with the aroma of delicious food. A familiar feeling rushed over him, as if he were returning home after a long journey. As he stepped through the threshold, Jack heard familiar sounds, the gentle clinking of glassware at the bar, the murmur of diners' laughter and chatter, and the faint smell of grilled steak. It was a typical busy evening at Redwood Rye. He smiled faintly. The place still attracted customers as usual. That made Jack somewhat reassured that the business was being maintained under Rick Callahan, the manager he had temporarily entrusted with the responsibility. Behind the reception counter, Emily, the waitress, saw Jack and widened her eyes in surprise. She froze for a moment, then gave a bright smile. "Welcome back, Jack," Emily exclaimed, her voice joyful but with a hint of sadness. Jack stepped forward to shake her hand in a friendly manner. He remembered Emily as one of the most enthusiastic and dedicated young staff at the restaurant. "It's good to see you again, Emily. How's everything here?" Jack asked, his gaze gentle but filled with curiosity. Emily hesitated a bit and replied, "Yes, everything is still fine, sir." The reply sounded normal at first, but Jack detected a trace of hesitation in her voice. Before Jack could inquire further, Rick Callahan, the manager, hurried out from the bar area when he heard the greeting. Rick was a middle-aged man, tall with broad shoulders and sharp, cold eyes. He wore a dark suit, a tightly knotted tie, and had a professional demeanor. "Oh, Jack. When did you come back? Why didn't you let us know in advance so we could prepare a welcome?" Rick laughed loudly and extended his arms in greeting. Jack returned the smile, giving Rick a firm handshake. "I wanted to surprise you a bit," he said. A few other staff members approached to greet Jack. Among them was Tyler, the young waiter Jack always liked for his gentle and hard-working nature. Tyler cheerfully said, "Welcome back, Jack. We all missed you." Jack patted his shoulder. "Thank you, Tyler. I missed everyone too." Nate, the longtime bartender, stood behind the bar, waving and smiling instead of speaking. Nate's gaze flicked from Jack to Rick, as if gauging the manager's reaction to the owner's sudden appearance. Jack looked around the restaurant. Everything appeared orderly, and customers were being served attentively. Rick quickly reported on the business situation of the past few months in a low and firm voice. Stable revenue. A couple of old staff left but had been replaced. Everything was under control. Jack nodded, trying to grasp every detail. He noticed that as Rick spoke, his eyes occasionally darted towards Emily standing by the counter, and Emily quickly looked down as if avoiding his gaze. That brief detail caught Jack's attention. His smile subtly faded. Despite the cozy and calm appearance, Jack sensed something was off. The feeling was vague but persistent in his heart from the moment he stepped in. Emily's hesitant glance, the wary demeanor of some staff when glancing at Rick, It was all like fleeting wind, but enough to make Jack uneasy. He wasn't sure what was hidden beneath this facade of normalcy, but his intuition as a leader who deeply cared for his staff told him something was not right at Redwood and Rye. Beneath this calm surface, Jack didn't rush to intervene immediately, but quietly observed the restaurant's operations that evening. He sat at a corner of the bar, sipping a fine bourbon, and watched everyone at work. Occasionally, a few regular customers recognized Jack as the owner and came over to chat. He politely responded and then continued observing his employees. The more he watched, the more Jack noticed something strained in the work atmosphere. In particular, his eyes were constantly drawn to Emily. She served tables quickly, always smiling at customers. But when she turned away, that smile vanished as if she were burdened by a heavy secret. In the moment when Emily carried a tray of drinks past Rick, Jack saw her flinch slightly, her shoulders drawing inward as though afraid of something. Rick merely glanced at her, said nothing, but that cold stare was enough to make Emily bow her head and quicken her pace. The scene played out in an instant, but was enough to make Jack's heart tighten. Not long after, a minor incident occurred in her haste. Emily accidentally dropped a glass of red wine onto the floor, attracting the attention of several surrounding diners. The red wine spread out, and she frantically apologized to the customers and hurried to clean up the shards. Jack was about to stand up to help when Rick appeared beside Emily, as if emerging from the shadows. His face initially appeared calm, but his clenched jaw showed he was restraining his anger. "Be more careful, Emily," Rick said, his voice low but sharp as a knife. "Clean this up thoroughly, then bring a cloth to wipe down the customer's table." "I don't want to see this happen again." Emily softly stammered her apologies, her hand holding the cloth trembling slightly. Jack watched from a distance, feeling a surge of frustration. Such a minor mistake did not warrant harsh words. But Rick stood too close to Emily, his eyes pinned on her menacingly, which made Jack even more worried. Although Rick didn't raise his voice in front of customers, the tension was clear on Emily's face. When everything seemed to settle down, Jack decided to take a walk around the restaurant. He checked the kitchen, then made his way to the storage area in the back. Just then, he heard Rick's deep voice murmuring from a small hallway near the storage room, "I told you to be careful. Emily, do you know how much you embarrassed me in front of the boss?" His voice lowered, but was filled with anger. Jack stood behind a slightly ajar door, his heart pounding faster. Emily's hesitant voice responded, I'm sorry, Mr. Rick. I didn't mean to." She hadn't finished her sentence when Rick snapped, "Quiet. If you make another mistake, don't blame me." Jack's blood boiled. He almost burst out, but managed to restrain himself, continuing to observe. Through the narrow gap, he saw Rick standing very close to Emily, his eyes full of threat, while Emily kept her head down, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She nodded repeatedly, clearly terrified. After a few tense seconds, Rick stepped back and waved his hand dismissively. "Go back to work." Emily quickly walked out of the hallway, unintentionally brushing past where Jack was hiding. Catching Jack's gaze, she flinched. Her face was pale, and it seemed tears still lingered at the corners of her eyes. Emily opened her mouth as if to say something, but then only bowed her head and hurried back to the dining area. Jack stepped out, facing Rick. The manager had just turned around, his cold eyes locking with Jack's furious gaze for a moment. The atmosphere thickened with tension. But Rick quickly changed his expression, feigning surprise. "Oh, Jack, When did you come out here? I was just reminding a staff member a bit. He gave a thin smile, his demeanor as if nothing serious had happened. Jack clenched his fists, struggling to contain his seething anger. He forced a polite smile, but spoke with a firm tone. I just checked around the place. Everything okay? Ah, yes, everything's fine, Rick replied, narrowing his eyes slightly as if gauging Jack's reaction, not wanting to cause a scene while customers were still present. Jack nodded and turned away. But inside, he was determined to get to the bottom of this. Through what he had witnessed, the unease in Jack's heart now had a solid foundation. He sensed Emily's fear, Rick's suppressed aggression. Something bad was happening, something he had been unaware of until now, and he couldn't turn a blind eye any longer. From what he had witnessed, Jack's unease now had a solid foundation. He sensed Emily's fear and Rick's suppressed aggression. Something bad was happening, something he had been unaware of until now, and he could no longer turn a blind eye. So, what will Jack do next? Stay tuned, the next part will reveal unexpected twists. Before we continue, leave a comment below to share your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to support us in bringing more gripping stories. Now, let's continue with the story. That night, after the last customer had left, Jack suggested that Rick go home early, using the excuse that he, as the returning boss, wanted to personally review the day's closing records. Rick hesitated briefly, then reluctantly left, but not before casting a final glance around, as if to ensure no one would slack off. Once the door closed behind him, the atmosphere in the restaurant seemed to relax as though everyone had just shed an invisible burden. Jack walked over to the bar where Nate was wiping down the last few glasses. Tyler also lingered to help stack chairs and tables. Emily stood in a corner of the room, fumbling with an inventory list. Her eyes still carried traces of fear. Jack decided it was time to have an honest conversation with his staff. He spoke gently but decisively. Everyone, please come here for a moment. I want to discuss something. Hearing the owner's voice, Nate, Tyler, and Emily all looked up. They exchanged hesitant glances before slowly approaching Jack. The three of them formed a small circle in front of him, somewhat apprehensive. Jack looked at each person in turn, his gaze warm but serious. I know I've been away for a few months, and you all have worked very hard. Thank you for keeping Redwood and Rye running smoothly. He paused, took a deep breath, and continued in a lowered voice. However, I sense something's not right. I saw how Rick treated Emily tonight. As a manager, he shouldn't make his staff feel afraid like that. Hearing this, Emily quickly waved her hands and stammered. Mr. Jack, actually, it's nothing. I was just a bit tired. She hadn't finished when Nate spoke up, his voice low and firm. Jack, your instincts are spot on. There really is something going on. The older bartender's gaze met Jack's, then shifted to Emily with sympathy. Tyler nodded slowly, his face showing clear concern. Jack nodded encouragingly. I really want to hear the truth. Rick isn't here, so feel free to speak openly. I promise to protect you all. The sincerity in Jack's voice made Emily lower her head, her shoulders trembling as if holding back emotion. Tyler glanced at Emily and decided to speak first. Mr. Jack, we've been under a lot of pressure lately. Rick has been managing very harshly, and many times we've felt utterly exhausted. Nate cleared his throat and continued. It's not just strictness. Jack. To be blunt, Rick has abused his power. Seeing Jack listening intently, the bartender went on. He often berates staff with harsh words, especially Emily. She's been called into his office repeatedly, and every time she comes out, her eyes are red. Tyler clenched his hands and added, "That's right. I and others have also been yelled at by Rick for no reason. Like the time I accidentally burned a dish. He scolded me in front of everyone in the kitchen. Some couldn't take it and quit." Tyler's voice trailed off. Jack's heart twisted painfully as he listened. He hadn't realized that during his absence, the atmosphere at Redwood and Rye had become so stifling. His gaze fell on Emily, who remained silent, her hands clutching the edge of her apron as if to steady herself. Jack gently placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice calm and caring. "Emily, I know something happened to you. You don't have to be afraid. I'm here now." "Please tell me. What has Rick done?" Emily's whole body trembled. She raised tear-filled eyes to Jack, then glanced at Tyler and Nate. Seeing her two colleagues nod encouragingly, Emily finally spoke in a faint, shaky voice. "Rick, at first, he just yelled at me whenever I made mistakes. I tried to endure it, thinking maybe I wasn't doing well enough. But then things got worse." She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening. "One time, after hours, he made me stay behind to clean up. When it was just the two of us in the room, he... Her voice broke off, tears streaming down her cheeks. Tyler gently placed a hand on her back in comfort. Jack felt his heart constrict, but he forced himself to stay calm and asked, "What did he do to you?" Nate clenched his teeth and recounted in Emily's place that night. "I was also there late, checking the liquor inventory. I heard strange noises from the manager's office and decided to check. I saw Rick. He was pinning Emily against the wall." Nate's voice trembled with anger as he recalled the scene. He grabbed her arms, pressed close, and it was clear he had bad intentions. Emily was terrified and struggled, but I burst in just in time to make him back off. Emily sobbed and continued through her tears. "If it weren't for Nate, I don't know what terrible thing would have happened. He threatened to fire me if I told anyone. He said no one would believe a lowly employee like me, and that even Mr. Jack would side with him." She covered her mouth, trying to stifle her sobs. "I was so scared. I need this job, and I didn't want anyone else to get in trouble." Hearing this, Jack couldn't contain himself any longer. He felt a mix of anger and sadness surging through him. His face flushed red, his clenched hands trembling. For a moment, he wanted to storm off and confront Rick immediately. But seeing Emily crying, and Tyler and Nate also teary-eyed, Jack knew that at this moment, he needed to remain steady more than ever. Jack took a deep breath, his voice hoarse. "I'm truly sorry to all of you, especially you, Emily. I trusted the wrong person. I didn't realize he used his authority to do such terrible things." He looked around, his eyes glistening. "But now I know the truth. Thank you all for telling me. I promise this ends today. I won't let anyone at Redwood and Rye suffer injustice or fear any longer." Jack's resolute words echoed through the quiet restaurant. Emily wiped her tears, looking at him with gratitude and a glimmer of hope. Tyler nodded slightly, and Nate let out a sigh of relief. In that moment, Jack realized that the true role of a leader wasn't just about steering the business, but also about protecting the people under his roof, and he vowed to make amends, starting immediately. The next morning, Jack arrived at Redwood and Rye early, even before opening hours. He had arranged for Rick to come in early under the pretense of discussing the restaurant's future business plans. Inside, Jack's heart was burning with determination to protect his staff and confront Rick Callahan once and for all. Rick entered the restaurant with his usual leisurely demeanor, but his eyes showed a hint of curiosity mixed with wariness when he saw Jack waiting in the middle of the empty dining area. "Good morning, Jack," Rick said, trying to sound friendly. "What did you want to discuss?" "Looks serious." He gave a smirking smile. Jack crossed his arms over his chest, his face cold and stern, completely different from his usual affable expression. "Yes, there's something very serious we need to discuss." He looked Rick straight in the eye. "It's about how you've been treating my staff." Hearing that, Rick's face changed slightly but quickly morphed into a dismissive smile. "Oh, you mean, last night, I'm sorry you had to witness a few unpleasant scenes, but sometimes you have to be strict for staff to improve." He shrugged, trying to downplay the situation. "Anyway, everything's fine. There's no real problem here." Jack took a step closer, his voice dropping to a low, steely tone. "No, Rick, everything is not fine. I spoke to Emily, Tyler, and Nate last night. I know everything now." Jack's eyes flashed with a controlled anger that made Rick recoil slightly. He blinked rapidly, then raised his voice in protest. "What are you talking about? Don't tell me you believe those lies from the staff." Jack clenched his fists, struggling to keep his voice steady. "They're not lies. You've been berating staff, intimidating them, forcing some to quit. And worse, you harassed Emily." "Do you think I didn't know what happened in that office that night?" Rick's face turned from red to pale. His mouth opened, then closed again, before he forced out a laugh. "Ridiculous. That girl said that she's making up stories to cover her own incompetence. I just called her into the office for a discussion. She's the one who misinterpreted." "Enough," Jack shouted, his voice echoing across the empty space. He stepped closer, his furious eyes locking onto Rick's. "Don't you dare blame Emily. You're the one who abused your power to do despicable things. No matter how you deny it, Nate witnessed everything." Rick flinched at the mention of Nate. He stammered for a moment, then gritted his teeth and sneered. "You don't have any solid evidence? It's just the word of some low-level staff. Who will the police believe? Them or an experienced manager like me?" Jack gave a cold smile, his eyes gleaming with disdain. "Do you think I'd cover for you because I'm afraid of scandal?" He shook his head. "You're wrong. I believe my staff. They are my family. And you don't deserve to be here another minute." Rick snarled in anger. "You dare! I've worked my tail off to keep this restaurant running while you were gone. Without me, those useless staff would have dragged you down, and now you're firing me because of a few baseless accusations." He stepped forward, his face just inches from Jack's, his attitude aggressive. Jack didn't back down. He coldly declared, "It's not a few baseless accusations. It's the truth. And because of what you've done, you're fired, effective immediately." "Try it," Rick hissed, his fury turning his face bright red. He lunged forward, swinging a punch at Jack. Jack dodged just in time and grabbed Rick's arm, twisting it behind his back. Rick cried out in pain, struggling wildly, causing chairs and tables to topple with a clatter. Jack held him down, his voice a low growl. "As of now, you're no longer part of Redwood and Rye. Get out, before I call the police." Rick gritted his teeth. "You'll regret this." Jack shoved him hard, sending Rick sprawling to the floor. He clutched his arm, glaring at Jack with hatred. At that moment, Tyler and Nate, hearing the commotion, rushed in and stood at the door. Tyler asked anxiously, "Jack, are you okay?" Nate stood with arms crossed, his gaze coldly fixed on Rick, realizing he was cornered. Rick scrambled to his feet, his expression furious. "This isn't over." Jack pointed firmly at the front door. "Leave. Now!" His voice was sharp and left no room for argument. Rick glared for a moment longer, then turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Now only Jack, Tyler, and Nate remained amidst the overturned chairs and tables. The atmosphere was silent, as if a storm had just passed. Jack exhaled deeply, relaxing his tense grip. His heart was still pounding, but a deep sense of relief settled over him. Rick Callahan had been dealt with, and Redwood Rye was finally free from the darkness he had cast. Right after Rick left, and the restaurant door closed, Emily timidly stepped in from the kitchen door. She had been hiding there, anxiously waiting while Jack confronted Rick. Her eyes still showed fear, but when she saw that only Jack, Tyler, and Nate were left, she finally dared to approach. "He's gone?" Emily asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jack turned to her, giving a reassuring smile. "Yes, he's gone. It's over now, Emily." Hearing those words, Emily seemed to shed a massive weight from her heart. Her legs gave way, and Tyler had to quickly support her. She burst into tears, but this time they were tears of relief after so many days of being trapped. Thank you, Jack," she sobbed, unable to form a complete sentence. Jack hurried over, gently helping Emily into a chair. He pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to her. "It's over now. You're safe. Don't cry anymore. It's all behind us." Jack gently placed his hand on Emily's shoulder, his voice full of compassion. Nate patted Jack's back and smiled faintly. "You did great." Tyler nodded in agreement, his eyes bright with trust. By this time, a few other employees who had just arrived for their shift heard rumors of what had happened. They gathered around Jack, their faces showing both surprise and relief. Clearly, news of Rick being fired and leaving had spread quickly. Jack stood up straight, sweeping his eyes over all his employees. Young faces tired from the days of working under pressure, but now shining with renewed hope. He took a deep breath and spoke in a warm but resolute voice. "I want everyone to know that from now on, Redwood Rye will be a safe and respectful workplace. No one has the right to abuse or frighten you here." His eyes met each of them, affirming every word. "I apologize for not being here in the past, for letting you all endure such a terrible manager like Rick. That was my mistake." Jack's gaze grew misty. "But I promise you, things will be different now. I'm committed to protecting you, to listening to you. Redwood Rye isn't just a restaurant, it's our family, and no one has the right to hurt this family." The staff listened silently, many with tears welling up in their eyes. Emily looked up at Jack, her eyes red but shining with gratitude. Tyler softly said, "We believe you, Jack. Thank you for always treating us like family." Another employee choked up, "Yes, thank you." The atmosphere in the restaurant became strangely warm. Jack smiled, feeling a weight lifted from his heart. He stepped over to help Emily stand up. She was still emotional, sniffling as she said, "I'm sorry for letting this happen, for not telling you sooner." Her voice was filled with guilt. Jack shook his head, sincerely replying, "You're not at fault. Emily, don't blame yourself. The fault lies with Rick, and with me for not realizing it sooner. What matters now is that you're safe. Everyone here is safe." Emily nodded, trying to smile through her tears. For her, freedom had never felt as precious as it did now. The fear that had haunted her for days finally dissipated. She felt lucky to have good colleagues and a boss who truly cared about his employees. Jack turned to Nate and Tyler. "As well as the other staff, I'm so proud of all of you. No matter how tough it got, you kept working hard and stayed united. Redwood and Rye's success today is thanks to each and every one of you." He placed his hand over his heart, emphasizing, "And a true leader must always cherish that. I will never forget this lesson." Everyone nodded, smiling. In that moment, the line between boss and employee seemed to dissolve, leaving only camaraderie and mutual trust. Under the early morning light streaming through the glass windows, Redwood and Rye seemed to glow with new energy. Every corner of the restaurant felt warmer, free from any lurking shadows. Everyone could feel it. A new, promising chapter was beginning for the Redwood and Rye family. A few weeks after Rick Callahan's departure, Redwood and Rye truly transformed in a positive direction. The working atmosphere became noticeably lighter and more cheerful. Regular customers continued to visit, and some even commented on the newfound vibrant energy in the restaurant. The sounds of laughter and chatter among the staff echoed more often in the kitchen and dining area, replacing the previously tense silence. Emily now had her bright, genuine smile back. She served customers with confidence, her eyes no longer shadowed by fear. Occasionally, she even cracked jokes with Tyler when the two of them served the same table, causing customers to burst into laughter. Tyler was no longer haunted by anxiety every time he came to work. He worked efficiently, even humming a country tune as he carried dishes, adding a lively spirit to the restaurant. Behind the bar, Nate deftly mixed cocktails, occasionally glancing at his younger colleagues with a satisfied smile. The seasoned bartender knew that the storm had passed, and the sun had returned to Redwood and Rye. He would prepare a free cinnamon apple juice for Emily at the end of her shift, telling her it was to help her recover after those stressful days. Emily accepted it with a grateful smile, her smile now natural and warm. As for Jack Carter, after the ordeal, he decided to temporarily manage the restaurant himself, spending more time with his employees rather than being absorbed in external projects. He didn't rush to hire a new manager because he wanted to ensure the next one would truly prioritize the collective's well-being. Sometimes, Jack would roll up his sleeves to help in the kitchen or personally greet regular customers. His frequent presence uplifted the staff. They knew their leader was always there, ready to support and listen. One late evening after closing, Jack stayed behind with everyone to wrap up a busy but joyful day. After everything was cleaned up, Emily approached Jack hesitantly and said, "Mr. Jack, I really want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I probably would have quit by now, or worse." Her voice choked up as she remembered the dark days. Jack smiled. "I should be the one thanking you for your resilience. Everyone here has faced many challenges, but now things will get better." Tyler stood beside her, adding, "That's right, Jack. We'll do our best to make Redwood and Rye thrive, because this isn't just a workplace, it's our home." He looked around, and the other staff nodded in agreement. Jack felt a warm sensation in his heart. He raised his glass, a non-alcoholic cocktail Nate had just made for everyone, and spoke loudly, "To the Redwood and Rye family. May we always stand united and succeed." Everyone raised their glasses in celebration, their laughter ringing out warmly under the beloved restaurant's roof. That night, after everyone left, Jack locked the door and stepped onto the sidewalk. The Austin sky sparkled with stars. He looked up at the Redwood Rye sign on the wooden frame. The streetlight cast a glow on the deep red letters. The night he returned, his instincts had told him there was turmoil beneath the calm. Now, everything had changed. Redwood Rye continued to shine warmly through the night, and inside was a team of united and peaceful staff. Jack smiled with satisfaction. He knew the recent challenges had made him a better leader, one who knew how to listen, protect, and appreciate his team. He walked to his car, confident that Redwood Rye's future would be bright. Tomorrow, the restaurant would open its doors once again, welcoming guests into a warm atmosphere where every employee was respected. That was the greatest success of a true leader. As the restaurant lights dim, the shadows that once loomed here fade into memory. The truth has finally been revealed, and justice has spoken. But above all, this is a story of courage of those who dared to speak the truth, even when it meant facing danger. Redwood Rye is more than just a restaurant. It stands as proof that no matter how deep the darkness, the light of faith and justice will always find a way to shine. If you found this story captivating and inspiring, please hit like, share the video, and leave a comment below to share your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next thrilling story. Thank you for listening.